A number of anime and manga, when they're created, do so with the focus of a single idea. What would the world be like if you had a book that killed someone when you wrote their name into it? What would a high school for heroes be like? What if a young student is drafted into a club to pay off a debt? It can often be a single idea, a single thought that will spawn into an entire series. But for some anime, it's not just the idea that becomes the focal point, but a single question in the series. And so, the question is, what is the importance of memory in the series Big O? Hello, ladies and gentlemen, I am your ever-friendly Pokeprof, and welcome back to Fascinating Fiction. Created at the turn of the century, the Big O is an odd series in many respects that just aren't normal for anime, especially when it was airing on Toonami and Cartoon Network back in the day. Many shows at the time, both here in the States as well as in Japan, were focused on young teenagers, children, and often not serious or introspective shows. This is the era where Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, and Sailor Moon were at their height, and while other shows found their place at the time, the influence of these juggernauts were felt far and wide in all of media. Despite this aspect of what was showing to be the most popular at the time, Sunrise Incorporated, the same studio that is known for franchises that didn't quite fit the mold, like the Gundam series, Escaflowne, and Cowboy Bebop, wanted to once again carve their own path. With the idea sparked by Kiichi Sato and directed by Kazuyoshi Katayama, the idea of Big O came to light, a series about a giant city-smashing robot piloted by a man in black set in a city not unlike Gotham City of Batman. While it took some years to be created, mostly because the idea was a bit of a hard sell to the rest of the studio, eventually it would move ahead with Chiaki Kanaka being brought in as head writer. Keep that name in mind, it'll be more important when I bring up history about the series. Big O is an anime that focuses on Roger Smith, a negotiator whose job is to help settle the troubles of Paradigm City, which we soon learn from Roger has been dubbed the City of Amnesia. From his exposition, we quickly discover that roughly 40 years ago, everyone in the city lost all memories of what happened before that time, with Roger pointing out that humans are adaptable creatures, that even without a history they can have some form of life. We learn that things aren't what they seem right from the start as Roger, negotiating for the return of a young woman, discovers that said woman is an android, looking close enough to human that it was almost impossible for him to tell the difference at first glance. It's this interaction with our Dorothy that eventually leads Roger getting involved with a group of scientists who have the ability to create a giant robot that's named Dorothy 1, who then starts rampaging about the city with a focus on trying to get access to a bank. Because even in a world where everyone has their very identities and memories wiped away from them, there's going to be people who want to go and rob banks for money. But when giant robots come a-knockin', that's when our show's namesake is called in to save the day.
Now, Big O, it's showtime!
Say hello to Big O himself, a robot known as a Megaduce. Should the city ever find itself under attack of a giant creature of any kind, which it often does, Roger calls upon it to take it down in his giant robot. What makes things interesting, and it is an aspect of the series that makes it stand out from other giant robot anime, is how the robots in the show are designed. Unlike other series, even Sunrise's own Gundam franchise, Big O and Company were made distinctly to be more realistic in their design and movements. Instead of ninja-like reflexes and insane mobility, Big O and his ilk are massive, plodding beasts whose movements are often reflected just with how something of their size might actually fight. For the majority of the first season, this is what we have as the basic plot for the anime. While after the second episode, our Dorothy ends up living with Roger as a maid, the show focuses on a fairly episodic format of Roger being contacted by someone to negotiate something, ending up running into a giant robot or the occasional monster, and calling Big O to take it down. While there isn't an ongoing plot, at least not in the traditional sense, there is one underlying theme that is constantly talked about, referenced, and often the reason for many of the events caused in the show: memories of some kind from 40 years ago. The creation of our Dorothy, the robots and creatures that Roger has to fight, and several actions taken by both hero and villains alike are all because of either a search for the memories lost or them regaining some memories of the past. What makes it interesting is the fact that many of those who did get these memories are too young for that, with some characters such as Angel specifically looking for memories as if they were a physical commodity, and for all we know in this series, they just might be. While the plots themselves don't really amount to anything big as a whole in this original season, it's this aspect of memories and their importance that keeps coming up. Just how important are the memories from 40 years ago? Do these memories dictate who you are before then, or the choices you make? And is it so important to regain those memories over living life as you have it now, ignoring everything around you to try and return to the past? All these questions are often asked by not only the show throughout the events going on the screen, but by Roger himself, who firmly comes down that memories can more often than not be both good and bad, and that it's often better to move forward with the now instead of trying to reclaim something from the distant past. We're given hints of what may have happened back then, but the actual backstory is never spelled out for the audience, with many things being left unanswered as the final episodes of the original series, RD, goes live. It's here where Roger finally faces the question of why he's come to be able to pilot Big O, and why Norman, his butler, has the abilities to repair it. It's then that he starts to question his own past, if he's truly happy with his decision to live in the now, and how he might be responsible for the deaths that have been occurring, all of the people who have been regaining memories, but all being too young to recall such things. This is where we meet Gordon Rosewater, the original creator of Paradigm City itself, and an author of Metropolis, a book that led Roger to him. It's revealed that he might have something to do with the lost memories, why things are the way they are, and it's eventually revealed to us that a lot of the characters in the story aren't really who they are. Showing him a crop of tomatoes, Gordon details how that his produce is synthetic, only with the memories of the taste of the original. Repeating the process might eventually lead back to regaining that original taste. He then asks Roger if he's read the book, to which Roger claims he has. Gordon states that the events in the book, everything about it, is a lie, which makes us sit up and take notice about him saying this, as the book itself mirrors several events that have already happened in the show, such as a great calamity that's affected everyone, robots roaming the land, and humans with the power of God. Big O ends with a wounded Roger and Dorothy as they face off against 3 robots coming from the sea, ready to fight the impossible odds. It's before this that Roger comments that everyone has choices. Some like to stand in the rain without an umbrella, and it's the ability to make that choice is what it means to live free. It's with Dorothy adding her hand to the controls of the Megaduce that the episode ends with Roger's call.
Showtime!
No, you're not seeing things. The original Big O ended off on a cliffhanger. Now, while I can't say for certain the reasons for things, mostly because this is a 90s anime that we're talking about, and a lot of the information from that era of the internet is spotty to say the very best, the common consensus of why it ended was because the show performed terribly over in Japan, which for most animes pretty much means that the series ends there and then. But then something happened, something that is fairly unique among anime even to this day. Here in the United States, Big O was a big enough hit that Cartoon Network actually footed the bill so that a season 2 got made. This is something that just doesn't happen, where an American company requests a Japanese studio to make another season of a series. As far as I've been able to tell, Big O is the only anime to have been able to do this. And so, in about 3 years' time, around 2002, Big O Season 2 was released. And it's very much a different beast than the original series. While the actors, music, and themes of memories are still there, the first thing that you would notice is a difference in style of animation, since this is when anime started going digital. Not only that, but there were two big things that Cartoon Network had requested when Season 2 got made: more action, and to reveal the mystery of the lost memories. The first very much happened, where while a lot of the slow and methodical nature of the earlier episodes were still present, we did get a lot more fights, scuffles, and overall conflict than Season 1 had. This also came with the stories being more interconnected with each other and an increased focus on some of the characters such as Angel and Alex Rosewater, the son of Gordon Rosewater and the current chairman of Paradigm City, who would end up becoming a major antagonist by the end of the series. The Lost Memories, on the other hand, well, that one requires a bit more digging to really get into. You see, Chiaki Kanaka, the writer of Big O that we mentioned earlier, is really well known for two particular aspects when he tells a story. He's known for delving deep into the philosophical, often questioning the meaning of identity and the nature of reality, but also for his deep love of the Cthulhu mythos. These aspects often make their way into anything he works on, and Big O Season 2 is very noticeable in this, as the first episode actually spends the majority of its time with Roger Smith in another reality after he questions who he is. It's throughout this episode that we're led to believe that this is Paradigm City 40 years ago, with everyone going about normal lives and things being completely different, Roger himself appearing to be homeless. Going throughout the episode, we eventually hit a point of introspection from our negotiator that eventually turns everything into a small play, showing a potential version of how Roger first started controlling Big O and how he met his butler Norman. During this instance, we also see that the audience is Roger himself, his entire face shrouded in black. We never actually get a proper explanation for this scene, other than being led to believe that it's Roger himself having a bit of a crisis of confidence in himself, his own lack of memories, and his conflict about the idea of Rosewater's tomatoes, as it is implied that the process of synthetically growing tomatoes was used to make some of the humans today, including Roger. It's only with the realization that he has been running all this time, ignoring the fear and terror of the missing past, that Roger pushes past this fake world that he's found himself in, eventually finding himself face to face with Dorothy once more. And here's something in particular I want to point out from Dorothy that I'm wanting you to keep in mind.
You said play, but that's ridiculous. You're not an actor, Roger Smith.
Keep this and the fact that when we look back to the audience where we saw the shadow of Roger before, we see now all the main characters that have been taking part of the series sitting there. But this is why I said that the answer to the questions and the mystery of what happened 40 years ago are so hard to answer, because Kanaka often goes into the heads of our characters, and what we may be seeing might not always be trusted. And while this isn't uncommon for some anime, especially considering one of the bigger names and giant robots also did this introspective thought on reality and the aspect of life, it's distinct enough change in Big O that leads to the rest of the series often giving us just a scrap of an answer that more often than not leads us to more questions. And there's no better example of that as we get into the end of Big O itself, since I cannot in good conscience talk about this series without talking about its ending and my own thoughts on it. The final 2 episodes of the series are the most connected, as Alex Rosewater has his own Megaduce at his command known as Big Fow. Between his activation of this new robot, taking a part of our Dorothy's cybernetics to help control it, and his desires, Alex here attempts to place himself as the ruler of the world, one that he'll shape into his own image after he purges all those he sees as not worthy of being in his new reality. It's during this that Angel learns that she, like Roger, is also a tomato, and it's here where it's spelled out that the tomatoes are, indeed, shown to be people of the world, how they were created in an attempt to replicate those who existed before. Angel and those among the Union, a villainous foreigner group that was introduced into this season, were tomatoes that were deemed inferior and cast aside. Or at least that's what we're led to believe until Gordon Rosewater states that neither Roger or Angel are tomatoes, at least not ones that Gordon created, and that he claims that there are no memories from 40 years ago. It's revealed, both through Gordon's words and the scenes going on outside, that the city, and perhaps the entire show, has been on a stage. Gordon even says that they're merely actors playing out their roles, something that has been an ongoing theme for several characters to have mentioned throughout this season. And it was the question of if they could change the roles that led him to reaching out to a version of Roger in an attempt to negotiate with the director of the world. Roger then takes the fight to Big Fow on the surface, while Gordon and Angel descend into the earth. While Gordon says that Angel is a memory herself and that she now has the power to choose what matters and what doesn't, she eventually reaches to shining lights off in a distance before Gordon is erased from existence. During this, Big O and Roger end up being knocked into the sea, having lost against Big Fow. And this is where we get the real wonkiness of things, as Roger gets visions of different realities. A warscape of hundreds of Big O's and other Megaduces, with Roger dead, the civilization from the start of the season and Roger just being a homeless man, an assembly line of Rogers being created. Each one of them has Roger denying them, rejecting these realities. It's only the last memory that he pauses at, and seems to accept before being saved by revived Dorothy. Joining together with the Megaduce by hooking herself directly into it, Dorothy, Roger, and Big O itself rise to strike against Alex Rosewater and Big Fow. It's with the union between the two robots that Roger is able to use a highly destructive final strike, one so powerful it completely destroys the city dome before it. With the blow crippling Big Fow almost entirely, it is then we see what Angel's action has caused as we meet yet another Megaduce, Big Venus. Unlike everything before, however, Big Venus seems to be erasing everything as it passes through it, from the very ground it's standing on, to the city around it, and even Rosewater and Big Fow. It's our Dorothy repeating a phrase to Roger about a bird whose wings have been plucked that Roger realizes that Venus before them is Angel. He then talks to the robot as it continues to erase the world about them, saying how he'll never forget about the woman called Angel, and how even if the memories from 40 years ago never return, he'll live for the now and for the future, always holding the memory of Angel with him. That's when we pull out, seeing what looks like to be a recording studio, the words "on air" highlighted to show that they are recording. Angel is watching the scene before her, crying as we get a shot of her name being on the Book of Metropolis. A single hand touches her shoulder, and we see Roger, Dorothy, and a poster of the Big O series in the background. As Big Venus and Big O walk into each other on screen, we get a flash of light, and then we see the first few scenes from the original episode of Season 1, though there are some slight changes such as our Dorothy and Angel watching on. The series ends with Roger repeating his first lines as the music of a sax and piano, staples of the series, guide us into the credits. So yeah, Big O's ending doesn't really explain anything, and honestly, to this day, we don't know what this all means or the real reasons behind it all. But we've got a couple of theories that we're going to be going over, and I want to throw my own hat into ring to give my own ideas. The first theory is that everything within Big O is a simulated reality, one that can be reset at will by the director, in this case Angel. The idea is that the simulation isn't perfect though, and when it's reset, some leftover information from the previous reality is still there. This would explain why even though everything is erased at the end and restarted like a computer program, why Roger recalls odd memories of events that couldn't possibly have happened, and why, even with the idea of the events happening 40 years ago, why no one seems to have aged that much to have been around that time. The second theory is the Myst theory, based on the video game series of the same name. In Myst, entire worlds are created by writing code into special books, where the author has free reign over the scenery, laws of physics, and even being able to take part of the book itself. The idea here is that Gordon Rosewater or someone before him wrote Big O's story, crafting it so that the world could exist. When Angel becomes the new author, she wishes to try things differently, thus restarting from the beginning in hopes of a better ending. The third theory is the legendary beast theory. Throughout the show, there is a lot of religious and mythological context. From the Big's words when activated being cast in the name of God, ye not guilty, to the name Megadeus even being translated to Great God in Greek and Latin, and the fact that the names Leviathan and Behemoth are both used not for just monsters, but for the names and identities of the Megadeuses themselves. The idea here is, with the finale revealing Big Venus, and the idea of a bird whose wings have been blocked, turning Paradigm City and the story we've been watching into a version of hell, with Angel being Lucifer. This goes heavy into the themes of Lucifer meaning morning star, relating to Venus, the idea of the wings being plucked meaning his fall from heaven, and the fact that Angel herself is revealed to be in charge of it all. The final theory is the ever-popular Truman Show theory, one where the characters and everything we saw is just a show, and the ending is the characters themselves acknowledging it, admitting to everyone that yes, they're just there to entertain you. The ending is essentially saying that there is no ending because you should just go right back to the start and watch everything all again. There are likely more theories that I've missed, but as you can see, they really try to deep dive into what makes this show tick. None of these ideas have been really able to convince everyone who enjoys the show, though, if it's right or not, and we never got any confirmation from the creator of the series or its head writer on just what the meaning was supposed to be. Part of the reason why the ending is so opaque in its explanation is because it asks the viewers themselves to think about what it means. It's kind of the point of philosophical questions. My own personal theory of Big O's ending is a mix of the ideas offered. I do think at the end of the day, Big O is a fictional story within its own universe, but not in the way the Truman Show is. I think what's happening here is that Angel is the creator of the story of Big O, but she's not sure how she wants the story to be told. She's tried at least a few times before to craft the story she wants, only for it to end in ways she hasn't intended, thus Big Venus erasing things to start everything over again. The Big O that we see is her most recent attempt, and it's in this case that things take a turn for the weird. Unlike all the other versions of the story she's told before, her characters have become self-aware. They've come to realize that they are not real, that they're just actors in a play, as is often said, and that they can't go against how they were defined. My idea here is that Roger, unlike the others, is the actual character from Angel's story given life and can choose and act for himself even against Angel's wishes. It's the reason why Dorothy tells him in the first episode of the second season that he isn't an actor, and why he later claims that he likely erased his own memories. He wanted to be a part of Angel's story and doesn't wish to see her simply give up and destroy all of her work again like what's happened before. He wants her to live, to continue her work, and allow her to be free from the confines of not being good enough, something I think every writer can sympathize with. That's just my personal idea though, and for all I know, it's just a wild theory I'm spitting out. But that's the kind of show Big O is. It asks you to think, to wonder just what would you do in a world like Paradigm. The anime asks if memories are that important to your life, if they define you or dictate your existence, or if you're just an actor that's playing the role that the memories that you have given you. Which is kind of funny when you look into the reasoning behind the show's creation. Keiichi Sato has admitted that the original idea for Big O started out as a gimmick for a toy, and that the entire style of the show, it was done in reference to things that Sato and the other creators were into from their childhoods, or something that they had worked on when it came to their careers in animation. That is why Big O's robot design and fighting style references old-style tokusatsu works, like older Godzilla films and Ultraman. In particular, though, it was the series' giant robo that served as a good part of what made Big O, as Katayama and the other animators of the series had worked on a film based on that property, and when it had suffered low sales, they wanted to put their effort into making good with the anime of Big O. Sunrise was also one of the animation companies that worked on Batman the Animated Series as a subcontractor. Because of this, there is a lot of DNA of the Bat in Big O, from Roger living in a mansion, never using guns, wearing all black, having a butler, the high-tech car, having a hero role that the police aren't aware of until later on. You can see the influence of it now that I've pointed it out. One of the final things to know about the background and history of the series, though, is the fact that we were intended at one point to get a Season 3. While Katayama has gone on record saying that he would never intend to reveal all of the mysteries of Big O, it has been stated that there was some intention to explain more of Season 2's ending should the series have gone on. Middling sales of the DVDs, however, ended that thought. It has been said that there does exist script ideas and plot lines for that supposed Season 3 out there, but again, part of the problem of talking about a series like this is just how hard it is to find steady information so long after the fact. Big O, at the end of the day, is a character-focused show. While the questions of memories, their effect on our existence, and how they shape us are asked, what the show comes down to is giving us a group of interesting people that we want to see live and breathe. From Roger's cool nature to our Dorothy's dry wit and even Angel's sly attitude, they all present an entertaining adventure for the viewer. One designed by its creators to have you be able to jump in, enjoy a giant robot romp, and leave just as easily. And though the ending might leave some unsatisfied, even frustrated by the lack of answers and the philosophical questions, there are few other shows, anime or not, that have the style, technique, or elegance of Big O. I'll always look forward to visiting Paradigm City, the city of amnesia, and one of the most interesting franchises in anime. With all that said, I hope I've done a good job to entertain you, and I'll do my best to do so again in the future. Hopefully you'll follow along with my content by subscribing and doing all the other things that gives us YouTubers life. If you wish to support me a bit more, I do have a Patreon where you can get access to bonus content. But until next time, stay frosty.